Perhaps most of us have forgotten the precise day. It was June 3rd, 1965. But not many of us will forget the experience of seeing Ed White leave the open hatch of Gemini 4. He said simply, "All right, I'm out." EVA, which began so successfully with this 20-minute walk in space, was not so easy in later flights. We scheduled 5 more EVAs, lengthened the time, and added space work to the flight plan. But we gave the astronaut too high a workload to perform, and the problem was compounded by the pilot's difficulty in positioning himself during work periods. Now we were coming up on the last flight and the last EVA, with questions about EVA still unresolved. And Gemini 12 would launch in 60 days. Part of the answer may be found under the water of this pool, where we have submerged mock-ups of the spacecraft and Agena Target Docking Adapter. We had done research in underwater simulation of space conditions for some months. Now, for the first time, a flight crew will incorporate underwater simulation into their EVA work training. In an inflated pressure suit, astronaut Edwin Aldrin, pilot for Gemini 12, is weighted with 60 pounds of lead. He is positioned at the prepared Agena workstation by trained scuba divers. Underwater simulation creates a condition of neutral buoyancy. It gives the pilot an effect quite similar to that of zero gravity. Astronaut Aldrin has attached himself by a waist tether to rings on the Agena. From past EVA experiences, we learned that astronauts spent far too much energy trying to stay in position while working. Waist tethers are one of the restraints that we are investigating for Gemini 12. The jobs now performed underwater by pilot Aldrin are those which will be done on Gemini 12. Attaching handholds, using a torque wrench to tighten bolts, making electrical connections, cleanup of his work area. In short, the type of jobs we know are basic to space station work. As he will during flight, pilot Aldrin has moved by handrails from the Agena workstation to the adapter area. He is now ending a rest period. We have carefully planned the rest periods of this EVA in relation to the workload. Leaning backward, pilot Aldrin tests another type of restraint used in the adapter area, special foot restraints. These are also called Dutch shoes by some people for obvious reasons. The chief advantage of underwater simulation is that it gives a training EVA pilot continuity of tasks. As such, it is a valuable addition to zero-G simulations in aircraft, where the zero-G condition is attained in the parabola of flight for only 30 seconds. Pilot Aldrin and his backup crewman, Pilot Cernan, are able to simulate the entire EVA exercise of Gemini 12 without a break, step by step from the beginning, as it is written in the flight plan. They run 2-hour simulations underwater several times and finish training almost on the eve of launch. On November 11, 1966, the Atlas-Agena Target Vehicle for Gemini Rendezvous and Docking lifted off the pad at Cape Kennedy, 7 minutes after 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Gemini 12 was now slightly more than an hour and a half from launch. Command pilot for the mission was Jim Lovell, already a veteran of the longest manned spaceflight, 14 days on Gemini 7. In the 4 days ahead, he would log more hours in space than any other man. His pilot was astronaut Aldrin. The Agena was inserted into an orbit of 164 nautical miles by 159 nautical miles. Mission Director Bill Schneider gave the final go for the launch of the last Gemini. Liftoff came at 3:46 Eastern Standard Time. The launch vehicle propelled the spacecraft as smoothly as it had in 11 previous flights, and Gemini 12 was headed for an orbit of 146 by 87 nautical miles. The first order of business after insertion into orbit would be an M=3 rendezvous, or rendezvous during the third revolution. Maneuvers proceeded according to plan. A radar lock-on with the Agena was reported at 235 nautical miles. And the crew sighted the target using a sextant telescope at 85 nautical miles. But as the distance decreased to 64 miles, the crew reported erratic radar response.
Roger, Hawaii. I wish we had lock-on solid on the Agena. He's still having negative luck with all that, huh? Roger, we'll proceed as with the radar failure.
The crew immediately went to a backup rendezvous mode, onboard computations. The pilot bent over his charts, relaying distance and burn rates to the command pilot.
Burn at 2 plus 05 plus 48.
This method had been used successfully as early as the Gemini 9 flight and presented no problem.
12 Houston, 1 minute to LOS. You can go encoder on.
Roger.
Have fun.
But still it is interesting to note that the pilot making the computations this time had written his doctoral thesis on just this subject, rendezvous modes. Dr. Aldrin was as calm as though he were sitting in the graduate stack studying. And Command Pilot Lovell brought Gemini 12 to a station-keeping position at Tenerife, 3 hours, 46 minutes after liftoff. He began making his preliminary docking approach. He will dock south of Japan within range of the tracking ship Coastal Sentry Quebec, or CSQ in the flight controller's call letters.
Is he docked, CSQ?
That's negative flight.
Okay. You satisfied with the Agena?
Both vehicles are go.
Okay. Let him know that.
Okay. Gemini 12, CSQ. Roger, CSQ. We're giving you a call for docking. Roger, thank you. CSQ. We are done. Roger.
As docking practice continued in the third revolution, Pete Conrad, the Capcom on duty, broached a problem to the crew. It concerned the Agena Primary Propulsion System, the PPS.
The problem appears to be one that indicates a possible turbine pump problem. And we're going to give you a go a little bit later on as to whether you can make the PPS burn or not.
There had been a momentary drop in the pressure in the thrust chamber of the PPS during insertion. It then returned to normal. But that 1 second drop in pressure was enough to bring the Gemini specialists onto the floor of mission control. The pressure drop could cancel plans for the PPS burn today, which would inject the docked vehicles into a higher orbit of 400 nautical miles. The decision came in the fourth revolution and was relayed through the Hawaii tracking station.
12 Hawaii, you no go at the present time on the PPS burn.
The big burn, such as we saw on Gemini 10 and Gemini 11, was out for this mission. But the crew was given no chance to settle back for a couple hours free ride, or crack open a good novel, even if they had one aboard. Mission Control came up with a substitute plan. It was this. Tomorrow, Gemini 12 would take photos of the solar eclipse over South America. For eclipse phasing, Command Pilot Lovell would make 2 Agena burns, but with a smaller secondary propulsion system. And one more change. The crew would go to sleep an hour early, but they would wake up 2 hours early. Hawaii bid them good night on the 5th pass, and summed up things to this point pretty well.
been kind of a busy day. Thanks much. That about does it. And flight says to tell you good night.
Two major events faced the crew on the second day after they were awakened by the Canary station.
Gemini 12, Canary Capcom. Canary, this is 12, loud and clear all day. Ah, you're loud and clear. Good morning. Did you have a good sleep? Oh, so, not bad.
2 solid hours sleep, they said. This has been the pattern of past flights. You doze off and on during the first night and settle down to regular sleep the next night. But they were ready. First for eclipse photography, then a stand-up EVA. Gemini 12 was in good position for the eclipse. The command pilot shot time exposures for later scientific study. The stand-up EVA began over the Canaries. The hatch was open at 19 hours, 29 minutes into the mission. Pilot Aldrin reported that he had only a minor tendency to float upward and had no difficulty in maintaining the position he wished in the open hatch.
Okay, I'm just drifting here. It looks like I have a small tendency to float out, but very little. A beautiful view.
There was also preparation for the umbilical EVA of the following day. A portable handrail was installed from spacecraft hatch to the cone of the target docking adapter. It was left in position to be used Sunday. A major portion of this EVA was devoted to star photography, shooting so-called hot stars, much of whose light is in the ultraviolet spectrum. 80% of this is filtered out by the Earth's atmosphere. From Gemini, astronomers can study data unobtainable from the Earth. After 2 hours, 28 minutes, the hatch was closed and the crew was repressurizing their cabin over Canton Island. Jim Lovell reported, "It was a pretty good exercise, and I'm starving to death." The flight director was obliging.
Heat period for you starting at 2300 to 2350.
Sunday morning began rather abruptly, shortly after 3 a.m. by the clocks at Manned Spacecraft Center. Flight Director Krantz woke the crew about an hour and a half early to check out fuel cell operation. He took one bulky stack off the line. The crew was then invited to nap a little longer. Waking up early for one reason or another would be a feature of this flight. But the crew seemed to like keeping a farmer's hours. They declined sleep and went to work, taking another bite out of the 14 experiments of the mission. On the 27th revolution over Carnarvon, a go was given for the umbilical EVA and space work. EVA began over the South Pacific beyond contact with the ground.